That's me.
Okay. All right, first, tell me your first and last name and spell it.
Name is Jerry DeMuth, Jerry with a J, Jerry. DeMuth, capital D as in David, E, capital M, U, T as in Thomas, H.
Very good. All right, tell me what years you were in Atlanta, how old you were, and what you did when you were in Atlanta.
Without counting on fingers, I couldn't tell you my age, but it was 2 or 3 years younger than Julian Bond. And I came down, had never been in Atlanta before. After 2 years with the Quakers, American Friends Service Committee, wanted to join SNCC. Rode down with some people I knew in Chicago and met people in the Atlanta SNCC office, then on Raymond Street, and was sort of accepted. And then went back with them to Chicago, then drove down on my own and became full-time on SNCC staff, working in research, communications, and if needed, printing.
All right, and then how did SNCC differ from other organizations like CORE and SCLC? Okay, good.
Yeah, it is. I think SNCC was more youth-oriented, more activist, and which really appealed to me, you know, not just going to meetings and saying, hey, we should do this or do that. People were actually doing things. And so, of course, there was a lot of attention to sit-ins, voter registration drives, and so on.
And then was there any particular sit-in or demonstration that you remember that was, you know, prominent more so than the other ones?
There weren't any in Atlanta. I remember one in Cairo, Illinois, where John Lewis was in a line that was trying to integrate a swimming pool. But then it was after I got more active on the staff of SNCC that I saw some demonstrations and so on, but didn't.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Are you good?
Okay, sorry.
But didn't actually participate, you know, as in a line of demonstrators and things like that.
Did, also you had mentioned earlier how the city of Atlanta, if you may, was very supportive of the young SNCC workers.
Yeah.
So you talk about some of the businesses and things that sort of help you young guys.
Yeah, I don't think it was open support, although I guess some churches would have somewhat open support. I would go to the Quaker meeting or Unitarian church. But there were certain, you know, restaurants you'd go to where I guess people knew, you know, since we were an integrated group, that we must be in the movement. And so there were certain places we went, a Greek restaurant with a little waterfall on the back wall. There was a foreign film theater we'd go to with an Italian restaurant next door. And SNCC photographer Francis Mitchell would play Mario Lanza records on the jukebox. And I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years later, on a vacation, I was in that restaurant, and there was Julian Bond with a restaurant table full of people he was sort of meeting with. So there was that atmosphere, and the guy, obviously a liberal, who ran a very nice magazine and newspaper store, even sold some magazines that I had. Someone paid me in magazines instead of money, and he sold a couple of copies and gave me some money. So that was, you know, and it was more, you know, that field workers, you know, it was just so draining of energy being out in Mississippi or Alabama. And it was sort of like you would come back to Atlanta for rest and relaxation.
So, also the Atlanta Inquirer, which was edited by Julian Vaughn, how important was that as an intra-informational tool back then?
Into the early years of SNCC, in a single-family home, and then two adjoining or next door to each other single-family homes. The SNCC newspaper, the Student Voice, was essentially published out of the Inquirer office. And I remember one day looking at back issues of the Inquirer, and it wasn't all that great a publication, to put it kindly. And then all of a sudden it became really good, well-written, good coverage and everything. And it was that way a year or two, then downhill again. And those top years was when Julian was the editor.
And then what is your relationship or memories of Julian?
I just remember, friendships that just never die, even when you don't see someone, like this afternoon at the Bond Memorial. And it's still, there's still a close bond there. And especially, I think, when people, maintain concerns, and it's even into today's concerns, gay marriage and gay discrimination and things like that. And so people were progressing, as did Julian, in terms of not jumping on certain issues that are, quote, in, but leading the way. Just saying, hey, there's this problem too. Let's do something about that problem.
And then what's your strongest memory about being in SNCC?
A strong memory is being beaten in Selma. And Jim Foreman, the head of SNCC, sent me with a photographer, Dave Prince, to cover a meeting and voter registration meeting in Selma, after which Sheriff Clark's posse attacked people, including photographer Prince and myself, and seriously injuring Prince, and I ended up with stitches in my head. But at the same time, in Montgomery, had obviously a sympathetic white cop who led us not to the hospital we were planning on going to, but to the Catholic hospital. So he obviously knew, And then the doctor, who we could tell was sympathetic and told what had happened, and right away he just said, oh, that damn Wallace, referring to the Alabama governor, and how he sent his kids north. And he was a white surgeon. So that gave some feeling that there were positive things, even, among some in the white community. And that sticks in my mind, as well as racist actions and very courageous blacks in SNCC or in the communities. And that is something you just carry with you all the time. And, we still need courage for a lot of things.
And then, it's been 4 decades since SNCC. How has it changed your life?
It's made me, more aware of, social issues, and I think has made me more open to relationships with many different people. And I worked for the Chicago Sun-Times